This is one of Brisbane's most controversial projects yet. Grace on Coronation, a $430 million dream of modern architecture by Zaha Hadid architects. The plan? 3 massive skyscrapers in a champagne flute would sit on Brisbane's riverfront, creating a bold statement for the city. The reality was a legal and public battle that ended in the project's collapse, leaving the question for Brisbane's readiness for bold architecture. Zaha Hadid is a name that everyone knows, and it provokes a lot of debate. Zaha Hadid Architects is known for these outlandish parametric designs all over the world, and people either hold these designs in high regard and praise them, or it draws a lot of criticism. Was Brisbane's rejection of this project a stand for the community and its values, or a failure to embrace world-class architecture right here in Australia? The design was unlike anything Brisbane has seen. 27 stories of sweeping curves inspired by champagne flutes. Was this proposal ahead of its time, or just simply out of place? A vision of luxury and modernism that promised to promote Brisbane's architecture to the world stage. But a lot of the criticism from the council and the public was they called it disruptive and excessive, out of scale, and is overall disruptive to the urban fabric of the city of Brisbane. A lot of critics argued that these towers were more of a monument to vanity and focused solely on aesthetics and visuals rather than prioritizing actual city planning rules and benefits to the community. There was a big problem with the height dispute, as these buildings were set to be around 25 to 28 stories high, while the Brisbane City Council's height restriction in this area was only set to 15 stories. Back in 2015, the Brisbane City Council actually did approve this, even though it exceeded the height limit. A neighbouring resident challenged this approval in 2017, citing aesthetic and planning concerns. Initially, this was upheld by the Planning and Environmental Court, which deemed the public interest sufficient to justify the extreme height. However, suddenly, in 2018, the Supreme Court of Queensland reversed this decision, citing its specific failure to adhere to the height limits. And their key judgment on this was simply lack of evidence that it would benefit the community and the economic needs of the city. So the final decision was that it was readmitted to the Planning and Environmental Court, where ultimately they would still reject the application. Sunland Group, the developer of this project, acknowledged the rejection. However, they expressed their intent to continue exploring alternative designs for this site. There was still a lot of public debate around this, between balancing ambitious new designs in the city versus keeping the local planning and community values, which poses the question of these kind of buildings, Zaha Hadid architects, where they create massive buildings of huge scale, however completely disregarding surrounding community values or what the residents actually want to see. Are these more just tourist attraction buildings, or simply aesthetic buildings to make cities look better in photos and for public relations? Did Brisbane miss out on having another landmark building right in the middle of their city? Or was this a success for the community in rejecting what would have been an absolute eyesore on the riverfront of the city? There are currently a lot of landmark buildings still being constructed in Brisbane right now as they prepare for the Olympic Games. So would we see this as an overall loss, as certain areas in Brisbane are temporarily raising the height limits in preparation for the Olympic Games in 2030? Would we see this building come back potentially? Do you think the Sunland Group should continue trying to push this design, or do you agree that it's also an absolute eyesore? Everyone has their own opinions on this, but as this is still ongoing, we could see this be reapplied in the future, or it might come up, it might be rejected. But that concludes the $430 million Zaha Hadid building. Let me know in the comments if you'd like to see more of these architectural projects and controversial buildings within Australia, whether you think this should still go ahead or whether you think this would absolutely disrupt the local community. There's a lot of projects like this going up around Brisbane, around Australia, so I'll be keeping up to date with all the latest and most controversial building projects. Thank you for watching.